Ahoy! The Season 2 main content has just been announced, and it's more than we bargained for. Now, you know me as a guy who is normally calmly providing you with information, so I apologize in advance for stepping out of that role for a second here, but it has to happen. Gladiator Arena is f***ing happening, baby! Let's go! I just really needed to get that one out of my system. I have been talking about wanting a Gladiator Arena the moment they announced Brimstone for the very first time, and I've been saying it would be the perfect moment to release that arena map with the release, and I actually thought that that was why they were stalling Brimstone itself and whatnot. It doesn't matter, it's here, and I'm so happy, and I'm gonna talk about this first and then we'll talk about the rest. So one of the PvP pieces of content that was announced is a new arena map. I thought this might be coming later, but it's actually coming with this particular season as well, along with all the other stuff. This arena will be themed like the new Corsica one, so we already know what that looks like. Apparently it's going to be multi-leveled as well, and you can knock people down somehow, so that's going to be super exciting, though it worries me a little bit in the context of muskets in particular, but we'll see. Definitely going to be interesting, and I'm just super excited for this. I did not expect this to come now at all. I did not have any hopes for this being the actual Gladiator Arena that I was hoping for the whole time, and it's here, it's coming. Okay, moving on to more normal things that I can talk about more calmly. Since we're already on the topic of PvP content, there is also Crossworld Outpost Rush. Yes, this is going to be in the same patch. I don't know if all of this is actually going to be right at the start of the season. They didn't mention that in particular, but it sounds like it's going to be, because they specifically pointed out other things that were not right at the start of the season. So there will be Crossworld Outpost Rush, which will have regional leaderboards now, which means it's actually harder to get on top because you're competing with more players. There are also score adjustments that push the scoring system more towards playing objectives instead of pushing damage, which we've been asking for ages for the most part as well, because stat padding is just too rewarding in OPR at the moment, or in any PvP mode really. And that includes things like defending points and capturing points. I don't know if it will also include holding points, but either way, once again, just a lot better than the current system in my opinion. They also mentioned that baroness will get a change, but they didn't specifically explain that, though in the past they have already mentioned that they're gonna change the walls, so basically it's gonna be harder to snipe the baroness from outside. They're also making door resistance changes, so it's going to be harder to destroy doors for OPR in particular with ranged piercing weapons is what they mentioned here. But in return they're also gonna make siege equipment changes, which should make this more interesting somehow, they said. So maybe the siege equipment will be usable to destroy the gates as well. Maybe they'll be placed in positions where you can just shoot directly at the gates and take them down very easily. As many of you probably already know, the PvP reward track is also getting reworked. All of the existing drops will be overhauled, and they said they weeded out things players weren't selecting or that weren't performing well as well, and are making sure that good rewards also show up a lot more frequently. From the previous dev talk, we also know that they're specifically reworking the rewards from level 1 to 20 to be specific very good drops, and then afterwards there will be just frequent good drops with better perk pools. Before we get to the PvE side, there are some important general changes as well. First Light is gonna be locked off. You cannot get into First Light because First Light has been taken over by Adiana for the main storyline, and she's doing some new things there. We all know that it's leading towards the expansion, so I think we'll see the first teasers of what is happening there in the form of how that is locked off. I would think it's probably going to be some vines that are just sealing it off, and I'm hoping for my tropical paradise behind it. If you have a house in First Light, they said nothing will be lost, everything will be refunded, so you're not losing any property, or at least you're getting the gold back for whatever you paid. Transmog itself will not be in the main patch, because they said the patch is essentially full enough, but will be an off-cycle release, so it will be between Season 2 and Season 3. But the Season 2 pass will include Transmog tokens on both tracks, the unpaid one and the paid one. So you can earn Transmog tokens before Transmog comes out, so that when Transmog comes out, you basically have tokens ready already, hopefully for at least nearly a full set. On the PvE side of things, we're also seeing tons of new content. So the general narrative for Season 2 is that the Dune Walker Malik needs help from the Silver Crows to revive the ancient sect called Blood of the Sands with sandworm eggs, and everything in the season will kind of play around that. They said in the storyline itself they will be doubling down on cinematics and fun encounters, and main enemies are now instanced as solo trials. So you no longer fight them with other players, and they should feel a little bit more epic in general too. Part of the Season 1 questline will also still be available to new players or players that haven't played Season 1, which will allow you to hire the members that you get during the first season, but you won't be able to play the full first storyline anymore. Also, the Silver Crows will get a new team member. When it comes to the Season Pass, they want to optimize the time it takes, making cards a more equitable and rewarding loop, and also continually optimize activities even before Season 2. There will also be new journey tasks and generally more journey tasks to choose from for each level, so you don't have to do more for the progression. That will be the same, but you have more option between what you can do for progression. The first season trial is the Hatchery. This is a 10-man raid with the goal of collecting sandworm eggs. You'll be fighting 5 waves of enemies. First you have some trash mobs, then you have the Horde Master and his hordes of fire grunts, and then you have Hadish Kazar, the Keeper of the Flame. They're using a very interesting new reward system here. So the rewards of the event will have Constitution as their attribute by default, but you can get seals from the trial, and that allows you to respec those items into other attributes. Kinda like items from the faction shop, if you remember those seals. I have a strong feeling that these rewards will likely be very useful for the Sandworm. And by popular demand, there will be a solo route through this piece of content as well. Keep in mind, this doesn't necessarily mean that you can do the whole trial solo, but maybe that there is an alternative way to get past this point of progression. We'll see. And then we have the big boy, the Sandworm, the Elite Trial. This is a 20 people trial, and they said this is going to be super hard content. They mentioned in this context that when they once tried to make hard content, it was invasions, which were originally really hard. The original invasions were only beaten by very, very few groups. There were a very small percentage of players that actually beat those. So apparently this or harder is the level that we can expect, so I'm super, super excited. They say that this will need coordination and optimized gear, and they predict that in the first week around 100 players will be able to beat it. The trial is meant to be difficult, unlike Merkgard, which they made a little bit of fun of here, and all the rewards are going to be really strong as well. And here's your trading tip that I posted on my Patreon a long time ago already. So, if you support me there, you get tips like this early and can make some more gold with that, but if you are doing it right now, you might still be able to make at least some gold. The Sandworm is now confirmed to be a beast enemy. In other words, 99% of the player base won't have gear for this guy, and Beast Ward gear is not easy to come by at all, so there's going to be a lot of crafting happening as well. Additionally, acid damage will also be a factor in this fight. This is probably not surprising to most of you. The Sandworm will provide its own Heartrune as well. Along with this, they're releasing raid groups as a feature, with a maximum of 20 players per group so far, so it's not something that could be used in wars yet, and is usable in open world too. So for example, you can use this for chest runs in PvP. They didn't mention OPR here. I could imagine that they're testing it for other things first and then see if it works for OPR too. And this also includes being able to see everyone on the map, so it's going to be great once it hits OPR. They also had an important remark on the Heartrunes here. They say they're feeling like they're releasing them too fast. They're still planning to release another one in Season 3, but are thinking of scaling back afterwards unless the players want more and more Heartrunes. I am in the camp of them please not adding more Heartrunes. I think they should rather focus on balancing the ones that currently exist instead of adding more and more and more. Heartrunes like Dark Ascent have very limited use, so I'd rather see those reworked first before we get others. Especially because every Heartrune is a balance concern in itself as well. There will also be a new event called the Siege of Sulfur. In this event you have to defend eggs that are being attacked, and the rewards scale with the number of eggs defended. So this is very fun, kinda like a mini invasion I suppose. And the reward here includes a really cool helmet, they say, which is a mini Devourer head with a sandworm on your head. They make mention of the Lord of the Rings MMO and talk about the plans for New World in that context. They say New World is something we're heavily invested in, and the next year will probably have more content on it than this year's plan. There's no taking our foot off the gas on New World. Again, we also know that they are using the same engine, and I think they're going to use New World to test a lot of the things for Lord of the Rings, so I think this is going to be absolutely fine. I also don't expect Lord of the Rings to release in the next year or something. Now, you may have already seen my real roadmap. There are a few things on there that they haven't mentioned yet that I predict they will still mention, but what they didn't do in this particular video is talk about the balance segments yet. So they didn't talk about weakest ability balance, they didn't talk about block changes, and I think those things will come in the next Balance of Power video, and that's probably why they didn't touch upon them. The one thing they didn't mention that surprised me is the invasion rework, because it sounded like that is going to come next season as well. But then again, they have so much other content that I'm not too phased, to be honest. They also didn't mention the trophy improvements and the fishing improvements, but those are smaller things that could just be in the patch notes later and are also less guaranteed for Season 2 in general. If you want to see the full real roadmap, I will link that right here. It seems like the next season is going to be absolutely brimming with content, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Of course, I will update you once there are further news, so consider subscribing and clicking the bell if you haven't yet. Also important, the test server for this, the PTR, is probably going to come out fairly soon, because typically when they make these announcements, they release the PTRs shortly afterwards. I'd like to try out the new content, and I'd like to show you the new content. If you want to see that, twitch.tv/DukeSloth, link is also down in the description. That's where I will be streaming it. Also, if you're interested in participating, I highly recommend updating your PTR now, so that when stuff comes out, you are ready to just download the latest update and then join in. I'll try and get groups going at times that are suitable for our regions, and then we can explore the new content together. So, really looking forward to that. I really hope to see you for that too. Of course, in the next days we'll still talk about things like elemental aversion versus shirking fortification and upcoming perk changes as well. Thanks to my patrons for supporting this video, and thank you for watching. DukeSloth, out.